Our perspective is so powerful. So, what perspective do you bring into your classroom every day? Do you ever really think about that? Henry Ford said that whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And that is how powerful our perspective is. So, think about your students and think about your classroom. If you believe your students will be successful, they will. And if you believe they won't, they won't. Now, I don't want to get all woo-woo on you in that regard, but it does impact our behavior. If you believe your students will be successful and have great behavior, you will find a way to create that environment that supports them. You will do everything in your power to get there. Yet, if your perspective is that your kids just don't listen and that's how kids are today, then you're going to give up and you're not going to work as hard. I recently read a stat that said 32% of teachers are happy. And what that made me realize was that 68% of teachers are not. They're irritated by their students and they're not happy to be in the classroom every day. And that needs to change because the only way we can raise happy, amazing students is if we are happy and amazing ourselves. So let's take a few minutes and get 5 fantastic tools that will help your perspective shift around education, the classroom, and maybe even your life. So the first one is thinking about the words you use, the language we speak. When you are talking about teaching, are you excited? Do you think about the challenges that you get to overcome? Do you think about the ways you get to help your students? I kind of hope so. But it's possible that you talk about the fact that they never listen and they're not going to do what you need them to do and no one supports you. And those can be, the same language can be used for a similar situation. It's just the perspective we take, right? When children are having challenging behavior, do we talk about it as that's just who they are and it's never going to change, in which your perspective is pretty bleak? Or do you think about it as, this is a challenge to overcome. We can learn something new together to fix this, which is a perspective that leads to learning, which is what we want for our students and for ourselves. So think about the language you use to describe the situations you're in. And if you shift it towards the positive, so will your perspective, which will also mean your actions go that way, which is the bottom line for me is how do we shift our behavior? This will do it. The second amazing tool that you can use to shift your perspective so you can be happy in your classroom again is to think about the visuals that are around you. Do you wear clothes with language on it? And if so, what does that say? Do you have signs around your classroom, around your home, around the spaces that you spend time in? And do they inspire you or bring you down? In my apartment, I have a sign that says, "You are amazing, remember that." And I love it. And if you have spent time with me, you know that I say the word amazing all the time. Part of why I say it all the time is because I see it all the time. So if you want to have a powerful, positive perspective, put things in your environment that remind you of that. Make sure you wear clothing that says, "I'm amazing," or "powerful," or "loving life," as opposed to some of the creative but slightly more negative shirts that I've seen out there. Think about how that will impact your students to see inspiration around them. Worth trying, huh? Number 3, this might be my favorite of all of the ways to shift your perspective, and it is to play pretend. If you want a classroom of students that listen all the time, that get their homework in on time, where you are having fun and enjoying it all the time, you need to start visualizing that. You need to start thinking about that. You need to start talking about that. So while it might not be true in this moment, we play pretend for just a couple minutes a day. You can say it out loud to a friend. I actually have one friend that we often talk about our fantasy lives, and the more we talk about it, the more it becomes true. You can write it down. You can journal it every day and say, tomorrow, this is what my day is going to look like, and write it out. You can just think about it for a few minutes. Sit down on the couch, close your eyes, and just dream about what your ideal classroom looks like. But spending time every day thinking about what our ideal looks like instead of the challenges that we're facing today shifts our perspective to the positive. It makes us believe it is possible. And that belief of possibility is what allows us to have a perspective that is productive, that we want in our classroom. It also allows us to give space to that. so that if we believe it is possible, if we have the perspective that it is possible, it might actually come true. So we start taking action steps towards it. That is where behavior changes. So number 4, you might have guessed, is taking action steps. Now, I don't mean big, gigantic action steps. I mean taking small steps. Small, little steps every day towards the positive things that you want in your life, in your classroom, for your students. Because as we take those small steps and we notice that we're taking those small steps and we celebrate those small steps, then we get the energy, the motivation, and the positive perspective to keep going to make those changes happen. Now, let's face it, if you have a class of 40 students and none of them listen to you during a lesson, and then just 5 of them start listening for just 3 minutes, that is a huge step in the right direction. But it doesn't feel that way because you still have 35 other students that aren't listening to you. If you don't acknowledge the small step that 5 students started listening, you will continue to be frustrated and overwhelmed. But if you start to notice that a few more students are listening and a few more students are listening and the behavior is starting to change, those small steps is what's going to give you the energy and enthusiasm to keep going, because we can only change behavior through small steps. Our perspective is the same. Small steps are super powerful. So take small steps, small actions, and celebrate them. Celebrate them. All right, 5, and our final way to shift our perspective so that we can get back to loving being an educator is to surround yourself with people who currently have the perspective you want. If you want to love being in your classroom again, come spend time with me. Even on my hardest days, I find a way to enjoy the fact that I am an educator. The fact that I am in a position to help people's lives be better thrills me, even when it doesn't feel like I had a successful day, right? Surround yourself by people who will lift you up when you are down, who have the perspective that everything is possible, that all behavior can change, if that's a perspective you want. Surround yourself with people who enjoy what they do in the world, whether they're another educator or have a different career path. Spend time with people who love what they're doing so that you can get back to loving what you do. Imagine if you walked into your classroom every day happy, enjoying the fact that you get to spend your day with kids. What would that change in your life? What would that change for your students' lives? What would that change for your students' future? And that's really what it's all about. So the way to change perspective, which will change your behavior, is by paying attention to the words you use and choosing them wisely, by looking at your environment and seeing what visually you can put there to remind you to have a positive, powerful perspective, by playing pretend for just a few minutes a day to design the classroom, the life that you dream of, so it becomes a possibility. Taking small action steps and celebrating them all the way. And then the 5th one is surrounding yourself with people who have the perspective that you want, that you are cultivating in your life. And with those 5 steps that you can easily embed into your day-to-day life, your perspective will shift, your behavior will shift, and you will love life again. Now, if you found these 5 tips helpful and you want more tools from me, come over to Facebook and join my Facebook group for teachers. It's Behavior and Beyond for Teachers, What School Isn't Teaching You. And I am in there once a week doing behavior lessons, so you will have the active tools to change the behavior in your classroom. I answer questions all the time, so ask for what you need, and either I or one of the other amazing educators in that group will help you get to the place where you have the tools you need so that you can love your classroom again. All right? Facebook, Behavior and Beyond for Teachers, it's my group, and I would love to see you there to get more enthusiasm, more enjoyment, more engagement around what's happening in your classroom. It's what it's all about. So have an amazing day. And remember, blue skies are ahead, and we are going to get there together.